My husband left me to marry another woman. He took his whole family with him and said they were going to have the wedding on his land. Before leaving, he sent me one last message. When we come back, you won't belong in this house anymore. While they were gone, I made my own decision. Days later, when they returned, the land was empty. Their excitement froze in an instant. They could only whisper one question. Where is everything? I just sat in my car, watched, and smiled. Before we continue, don't forget to write in the comments which country you're from and how old you are. Enjoy listening. The morning Mark left, the sky over Willow Creek hung low and gray, as if the clouds themselves were holding their breath. I stood on the porch of the house we had built together, every nail, every beam chosen during late-night talks about forever, and watched him load the last suitcase into his truck. Our two daughters, Lily and Rose, hovered nearby, eyes wide, clutching stuffed animals like life rafts. Mark's parents, his sister Claire, and her husband Tom followed in a caravan of vehicles, their faces set with the grim determination of people marching toward a new beginning. Mark had announced it 2 weeks earlier, over dinner, as casually as if he were discussing the weather. "I'm marrying Sarah," he said, not looking up from his plate. Sarah, the woman he'd met at the feed store 6 months ago, all bright smiles and easy laughter. "The wedding will be on the land. The whole family's coming." The land. 200 acres of rolling hills, pine forests, and the small cabin we'd dreamed of turning into a retreat someday. It was supposed to be ours, a legacy for the girls. That night, he sent me the message that still burned in my mind. "When we come back, you won't belong in this house anymore." I read it 3 times, the words slicing deeper with each pass. The house was in my name, my inheritance from my grandmother, but the land was his. He was taking his family, his future, and leaving me with nothing but the echo of his footsteps. I didn't cry. Not then. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, and felt something shift inside me. Not rage, not yet. Something colder, clearer, a decision. The next morning, they were gone. The house felt cavernous without the girls' laughter, without Mark's heavy boots on the hardwood. I walked through the rooms, touching the furniture we'd picked out together, the photos on the mantel, Lily's first birthday, Rose's dance recital, our 10th anniversary at the lake. I lingered on the picture of us at the county fair, Mark's arm slung around my shoulders, both of us grinning like we'd never break. I took it down, set it face down on the shelf. I called my brother Ethan, who lived an hour away in the city. "I need you," I said, my voice steady. He didn't ask questions, just said, "On my way." By noon, he was in the driveway, his pickup loaded with tools and a thermos of coffee. My best friend, Mara, arrived soon after, her minivan stuffed with boxes and a fierce glint in her eye. "We're doing this," she said, hugging me tight. We started with the house. I didn't want to destroy it. Despite everything, it was still my home. But I wanted it empty, stripped of Mark's presence. We packed his clothes, his books, his stupid collection of vintage belt buckles. Every item went into boxes labeled for storage, hauled to Ethan's garage for now. The girls' rooms were harder. I folded their tiny sweaters, their drawings taped to the walls, and packed them with care. They'd need these, wherever they ended up. I left their beds made, their stuffed animals lined up like sentries. By evening, the house was a shell. Furniture remained, too heavy to move without a crew, but the personal touches were gone. No more Mark's coffee mug on the counter. No more Claire's tacky throw pillows on the couch. I stood in the living room, hands on my hips, and felt the first spark of control. This was mine now, not his. Ethan poured me a glass of iced tea. "What's the plan for the land?" he asked. The land. 200 acres of possibility, and Mark thought he could claim it all just because he was marrying Sarah. I sipped the tea, the cold biting my throat. "I'm selling it," I said. Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Mara clapped her hands. "To who?" I'd already made the call. A developer, James Caldwell, had been circling the property for years, dreaming of a luxury eco-resort. He'd offered a fortune once, and Mark had laughed him off. I hadn't. Yesterday, while Mark was packing, I'd met James at the diner in town. "You still want it?" I asked. His eyes lit up. "Name your price." I did. Double what he'd offered before. He didn't blink. The contract was signed by midnight, wired funds pending final transfer. The land would be cleared, the cabin demolished, the forest replanted with manicured trails and solar-powered villas. Mark's dream of a family compound, gone. By the time he returned, there'd be nothing left but dirt and survey stakes. I slept that night in the empty house, on a sleeping bag in the living room. The silence was deafening, but it was mine. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. The days blurred into a rhythm of purpose. Ethan and Mara became my anchors, showing up each morning with coffee and quiet determination. We tackled the land next. I'd grown up on farms, knew the weight of soil under my nails, the stubborn grip of roots. Mark had always treated the acreage like a backdrop for his grand visions. Hunting trips, family reunions, that ridiculous idea of a private airstrip. I saw it differently now, a canvas I could repaint. James Caldwell sent his crew the day after the contract. Surveyors in neon vests swarmed the fields, pounding stakes into the earth, their lasers cutting red lines through the grass. The cabin, our weekend escape with its sagging porch and leaky roof, was first to go. I stood at the edge of the clearing as the bulldozer roared to life, its blade biting into pine logs. Dust rose in clouds, catching the sunlight like gold. The girls' treehouse, perched in the old oak, came down in pieces. Splinters of purple paint and fairy lights tangled in the branches. I didn't flinch. Each crash was a stitch closing a wound. By the third day, the forest began to thin. Chainsaws sang through the pines, their trunks thudding to the ground like fallen giants. I walked the perimeter, boots sinking into sawdust, and felt the land breathe out Mark's name. The creek where we'd fished with the girls still babbled, but the banks were marked for rerouting. "A new pond," James said, "with a dock for kayaks." I nodded, already picturing it. Mara found me there at dusk, her hair tied back with a bandana. "You okay?" she asked, handing me a sandwich. I hadn't eaten all day. "I'm good," I said, and meant it. The anger had settled into something sharper, resolve. I wasn't erasing the past. I was building over it. That night, I drove to town for supplies. The hardware store was quiet, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the clerk's radio playing old country tunes. Old Mrs. Harlan, Mark's great aunt by marriage, spotted me in the paint aisle. "Heard the family's coming back tomorrow," she said, her voice syrupy with gossip. "Big wedding, they say. Shame about the house, though. Empty as a tomb." I smiled, tight. "Change is good, Mrs. Harlan." She pursed her lips but didn't push. Back home, I sat on the porch steps with a flashlight and the deed. My grandmother's looping signature at the bottom, dated 20 years ago. The house was mine, free and clear. The land had been a joint purchase, but I'd paid the down payment with my savings from teaching. Mark's contribution? His charm and a promise. I traced the property lines with my finger, memorizing the new boundaries James had drawn. A sliver of the original acreage, 10 acres around the house, remained mine. The rest? Sold. Ethan arrived at dawn with a moving truck. We loaded the last of the furniture I'd decided to keep. The oak dining table my father built, the rocking chair from Lily's nursery. The rest went to auction. "You sure about this?" Ethan asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "The resort money's life-changing, Elle. You could buy a condo in the city, start over." I shook my head. This is starting over. By noon, the crew had cleared half the forest. Stumps smoldered in piles, the air thick with pine sap and diesel. I walked to the ridge where Mark had proposed, ring in his pocket, sky streaked with sunset. The view was gone now, replaced by a raw scar of earth. I took a photo on my phone, not for sentiment, but for proof. When they came back, I'd have this. Mara called from the house. "Delivery truck's here." The new locks I'd ordered, industrial grade. Mark's key wouldn't work anymore. I helped the driver unload, my hands steady. The old locks went into a box labeled trash. As the sun dipped, I stood in the driveway, the house looming behind me like a fortress. Tomorrow, they'd return. Tomorrow, I'd be ready. I slept in the car that night, parked at the edge of the property, windows cracked to let in the night air. The stars were sharp, the silence absolute. I dreamed of the girls' laughter echoing through empty fields, of Mark's face when he saw what I'd done. I woke before dawn, heart steady, and watched the sky lighten over a landscape that no longer belonged to him. Dawn broke pale and cold. I sat in my car, engine off, coffee cooling in the cup holder. The ridge road gave me a clear view of the entrance gate, now just twisted metal hinges where a wrought iron arch used to spell Harrington Acres. The sign was gone, hauled off with yesterday's debris. In its place, a temporary construction fence and a bright orange banner that read, "Caldwell Luxury Eco Retreat. Coming Spring 2027. Headlights snaked up the county road at 7:12 a.m. Mark's silver truck led the convoy, Sarah beside him in the passenger seat, veil already pinned like a trophy. Behind them, Claire's SUV carried the girls, Lily's face pressed to the window, Rose asleep against her shoulder. Mark's parents followed in their old sedan, bumper stickers peeling. Tom brought up the rear in a rental van stuffed with wedding decorations, white chairs, silk arches, crates of fairy lights. They slowed at the gate. Mark rolled his window down, confusion creasing his brow. He stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, and stared at the banner. Sarah joined him, white dress swishing. I watched through binoculars from the ridge, breath fogging the lenses. Claire climbed out next, phone already to her ear, voice carrying on the wind. "This can't be right." Mark walked the fence line, fingers trailing the mesh. He stopped at the survey stake marked Lot 1, Villa Cluster. His shoulders stiffened. He turned back to the truck, yanked open the glove box, and pulled out the folded deed he always kept there. I could almost see the moment realization hit. His copy was the old one, pre-sale addendum. My signature, notarized, wasn't on it. The girls spilled out then. Lily tugged Mark's sleeve. "Daddy, where's the treehouse?" Rose rubbed her eyes, clutching her stuffed giraffe. Mark knelt, voice low, but I read his lips. "Stay with Grandma." Claire herded them back to the SUV, face tight. Sarah pointed toward the cabin site, now a rectangle of churned earth. "That was supposed to be the ceremony lawn." Her voice cracked. Mark strode to the construction trailer parked where the barn used to stand. A foreman in a hard hat met him at the door. I couldn't hear the exchange, but Mark's arms flailed, then dropped. The foreman handed him a clipboard. Mark signed something, acknowledgement of trespass probably, then stalked back. I started the car, eased down the service road, and parked behind the house. The new locks gleamed. I slipped inside, boots silent on bare floors. From the upstairs window, I had a perfect view of the driveway. They arrived minutes later, tires spitting gravel. Mark pounded the front door. "Elena, open up!" His voice echoed off empty walls. Sarah tried the handle. Locked. Claire circled to the side, peering through windows at the stripped rooms. "It's gutted!" she called. Tom kicked the porch rail in frustration. The girls hung back, confused. Mark pulled out his phone, dialed. My cell buzzed in my pocket. I let it ring. He left a voicemail I'd listen to later. Then he spotted my car, half hidden under the oak. His face darkened. He marched over, fists clenched. I stepped onto the porch, keys dangling from one finger. "Looking for something?" I asked, voice calm. Mark stopped at the bottom step. "What the hell did you do?" "I made a decision," I said. "Same as you." Sarah rushed up. "This is our wedding site. We had permits." "Permits for Harrington land," I cut in. "That land was sold 4 days ago. Check the county records." Claire gasped. "You sold it? Without telling us?" "It was half mine to sell." I met Mark's eyes. "You said I wouldn't belong here. I decided you were right." Lily tugged Sarah's dress. "Mommy, Where's my room? The word mommy sliced the air. Sarah knelt, smoothing Lily's hair, but her eyes stayed on me, pleading. I felt nothing. Mark's father approached, slower, cane tapping. Elena, the girls need stability. Let's talk inside. I jingled the keys. New locks, new rules. Tom muttered something about lawyers. Mark shot him a look. We'll contest this sale. Go ahead, I said. James Caldwell paid cash. Title transferred yesterday. You'll be suing a corporation with deeper pockets than both of us combined. Silence stretched. Wind rattled the construction fence in the distance. A bulldozer roared to life beyond the ridge, chewing another bite of earth. Rose started to cry. Claire scooped her up. This is cruel, Elena. No, I said. Cruel was the text message. Cruel was taking my daughters to a stranger's wedding without asking. This is consequences. Mark's jaw worked. Where are the girls' things? Storage unit in town. Keys with Ethan. You can pick them up after you find a new place to live. Sarah whispered. The chairs. The arch. Return them, I said. Or donate. I don't care. Mark took a step closer. You think this hurts me? I'm starting fresh. I smiled, small and sharp. Enjoy the fresh dirt. I turned, walked inside, and closed the door. The lock clicked. Through the peephole, I watched them stand there, a frozen tableau. Then Mark herded them back to the vehicles. Engines revved. Dust clouds rose as they retreated down the driveway. I leaned against the door, heart hammering, but steady. Phase 1 complete. The convoy retreated, taillights shrinking to red pinpricks before vanishing around the bend. I stayed at the peephole a full minute, half expecting them to circle back. They didn't. The only sound was the distant growl of machinery and the wind worrying the new fence. I exhaled, long and slow, and felt the house settle around me like an old coat finally fitting right. I stepped outside, locked the door behind me, and walked the perimeter of my 10 acres. The survey stakes glowed faintly in the morning light. Fluorescent pink flags marking the boundary between what was mine and what was now Caldwell's. I pulled a can of red spray paint from my trunk, shook it, and painted a thick line across the dirt road where it crossed my property. No trespassing. The hiss of the aerosol felt like punctuation. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Girls okay? Need me there? I texted back. They left. I'm good. Come tomorrow. Then I turned the phone off. I needed silence. The construction crew took a mid-morning break. I waved to the foreman, Luis, a quiet man with kind eyes and a clipboard always in hand. He jogged over. Mrs. Harrington, everything all right? Call me Elena, I said. And yes, just making sure my line's clear. He glanced at the red paint. Smart. We'll stay on our side. I nodded toward the ridge. How long until the first villas are framed? Site prep finishes next week. Footings poured by month's end. You'll see walls before the first frost. Good, I said. Keep me posted. I spent the afternoon in the empty house, measuring rooms with a tape I'd bought at the hardware store. The dining room would become my office, the girls' old playroom, a guest suite. I sketched floor plans on graph paper, penciling in bookshelves, a window seat, a small greenhouse off the kitchen. Every line was a promise to myself. This space would hold new memories, not ghosts. At dusk, headlights swept the driveway again. My stomach clenched, but it was only Mara, her minivan loaded with takeout and a bottle of sparkling cider. She hugged me hard on the porch. Heard they came and went. You okay? Better than okay, I said. We ate on the floor, backs against the wall, passing cartons of pad thai. I told her everything. Mark's stunned face, Sarah's veil catching the wind like a surrender flag, Lily calling her mommy. Mara listened, eyes wide, then raised her cider. To new chapters. We clinked plastic cups. Later, I drove to the storage unit. The girls' boxes were neatly stacked, labeled in my handwriting. Lily, books, Rose, toys. I opened one, pulled out Rose's favorite blanket, soft yellow, frayed at the edges, and pressed it to my face. It still smelled like her. I sat on the concrete floor and let myself cry, just once, hard and quiet. Then I locked up and went home. That night I slept in the master bedroom for the first time since Mark left. I'd stripped the bed, washed the linens, remade it with new sheets the color of storm clouds. The mattress felt foreign without his weight, but the emptiness was mine to fill. I left the windows open. Cool air carried the scent of fresh-cut pine and diesel. I dreamed of foundations being poured, of saplings planted in neat rows, of Lily and Rose running through new grass under a sky that belonged to no one but us. Morning brought a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I deleted it, blocked the number, and started coffee. Ethan arrived at 9 with donuts and a grin. Ready for phase 2? Born ready, I said. We met James Caldwell at the diner. He slid a thick envelope across the table. Final closing documents. A cashier's check made out to Elena R. Harrington. 7 figures. I signed where the notary pointed, my pen steady. James shook my hand. Pleasure doing business. You ever want a job in development? Call me. I laughed. Maybe I will. Back home, Ethan helped me unload the first pieces of new furniture delivered that afternoon. A sleek desk, a leather chair, a rug in deep blues and grays. We arranged them in the office to be, sunlight streaming through bare windows. Mara showed up with paint swatches. We chose a warm cream for the walls, a bold teal for the accent. No more beige marriage, she declared. By evening, the house hummed with possibility. I stood on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the skeletal frames rising on Caldwell's land. The red line I'd painted glowed like a vein. My phone buzzed again. Claire this time. A voicemail. Elena, the girls are asking for you. Please call. I saved it, but didn't call back. Not yet. They needed to learn the new rules, same as Mark. I poured myself a glass of cider, toasted the empty sky, and smiled. The land was gone, the past cleared like underbrush. Tomorrow, I'd plant something new. Weeks slid into months with the steady rhythm of a heartbeat finding its new cadence. The house transformed room by room, color by color. The cream walls glowed under warm pendant lights. The teal accent wall in my office framed a vision board pinned with sketches of a small bookkeeping business I'd launch come spring. The greenhouse sprouted off the kitchen. Glass panels fogged each morning with basil and tomato seedlings pushing through rich soil. Every nail I hammered, every seed I pressed into dirt, felt like stitching my name back into the fabric of the land. I saw the girls every weekend. Ethan mediated the handoffs at the town library, neutral ground with its smell of old paper and lemon polish. The first time, Lily hung back, arms crossed, lower lip trembling. Rose ran to me, legs pumping, and buried her face in my sweater. "Mommy, why did the trees go away?" I knelt, smoothed her curls. "Sometimes we have to let go of old things to make room for new ones, like when you outgrow your shoes." She nodded solemnly, then asked if we could plant a new tree. We did. 2 dwarf apples in the backyard, one for each of them. Lily watered hers with fierce concentration, as if the sapling's life depended on her vigilance. Mark tried legal maneuvers, contesting the sale, claiming emotional duress, but the judge tossed it out within a month. My documentation was ironclad: the joint deed, the sale contract, the text message he'd sent as evidence of intent to abandon. The courtroom smelled of bleach and tension. Sarah sat behind him in a navy suit, clutching a tissue she never used. When the gavel fell, Mark didn't look at me. I walked out into crisp October air and bought coffee with the change in my pocket, steam curling like victory. The resort rose swiftly. By November, villa skeletons climbed the hills, timber frames laced with rebar. Luis kept his promise. Construction stayed on Caldwell's side of the red line. He even rerouted a service road to avoid my apple trees. I invited the crew for lemonade one hot afternoon. They sat on my porch steps, hard hats in laps, trading stories about their own kids. One of them, Javier, showed me photos of his daughter's dance recital. I recognized the purple costume, same pattern I'd sewn for Lily 2 years ago. Small world, smaller town. I started running at dawn, tracing the fence line where wildflowers now pushed through disturbed soil. Goldenrod, black-eyed Susans, stubborn milkweed. Butterflies followed me, drunk on late blooms. My lungs burned, legs strengthened, and with every mile I shed another layer of the woman who'd once waited for Mark to come home from meetings that lasted until midnight. The trail looped past the new pond, already stocked with bass, and ended at a bench James installed as a buffer between properties. I sat there often, notebook in hand, drafting invoices for my first clients: the library, the feed store, Mara's pottery studio. Numbers had always been my language. Now they spoke freedom. Thanksgiving came quiet. Ethan and Mara filled the dining table, turkey from the butcher, my grandmother's cornbread recipe, pie crust flaky enough to make her proud. The girls strung paper chains across the mantel, giggling when Rose's glue stick left sticky fingerprints on Lily's sleeve. We played board games until midnight, fire crackling, cider simmering with cinnamon. Mark had requested the holiday. I'd countered with Christmas. The mediator split the difference. I didn't mind. Every laugh in this house was a brick in the new foundation. December brought the first hard frost. The resort's show villa opened for tours. Sleek lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, rooftop solar panels gleaming like scales. James invited me to the ribbon cutting. I wore the red dress I'd bought on impulse in the city, heels clicking on polished concrete. Sarah was there, guiding prospective buyers, her smile practiced. Our eyes met across the great room. She looked away first. Mark stood near the model kitchen, arms folded, nodding at something a realtor said. He'd lost weight, shadows under his eyes. When the crowd thinned, he approached. "Place looks good," he said, voice gruff. "It does." A pause. The girls talk about the apple trees non-stop. "They're growing fast." He shifted. Sarah's pregnant." The words hung between us like frost. I felt nothing. Not pain, not triumph, just the steady beat of my own life. "Congratulations," I said, and meant it. A child deserved joy, not baggage. He nodded, swallowed. "Elena." I touched his sleeve, brief. "Take care of them, Mark." Then I walked away, heels steady, heart lighter. Christmas Eve, snow fell soft and thick. The girls arrived with overnight bags and matching pajamas. We baked cookies, snowmen with crooked smiles, then bundled up to see the resort lights. Caldwell had strung the villas in white, a constellation against the dark hills. Lily gasped. "It's like a fairy city." Rose slipped her mittened hand in mine. We stood at the fence, breath fogging, watching strangers take selfies under glowing arches. Mark's truck wasn't there. Good. Back home, we hung stockings on the new mantel, hand-knitted by Mara, names stitched in silver thread. I read them. The night before Christmas, voices dropping to whispers as eyelids grew heavy. Tucked them in side by side in the guest room, kissed foreheads that smelled of shampoo and snow. Downstairs, I poured cocoa, added a dash of peppermint, and sat by the tree. Lights twinkled on ornaments we'd made together, clay stars, pine cone reindeer. My phone buzzed, a photo from Ethan, him and Mara in ugly sweaters, raising mugs. Another from Luis, the crew around a bonfire on site, hard hats lined with tinsel. I smiled, saved them all. At midnight, I stepped onto the porch. Snow muffled the world. The resort lights shimmered through flurries like a distant memory. I thought of the land as it had been, overgrown, wild, full of Mark's half-finished dreams. Then I looked at my 10 acres, the house glowing warm, apple trees sleeping under white quilts, the greenhouse a beacon of green promise. I raised my mug to the sky. "To new roots," I whispered. Snowflakes melted on my lips, tasting of beginnings, Inside, the girls stirred, calling in sleepy unison. I went to them, climbed between small, warm bodies, and let their breathing lull me. Tomorrow we'd open presents, build snow forts, plant paper white bulbs in the kitchen window. Tomorrow, and every tomorrow after, belonged to us. The land was empty no more. It was full of light, of laughter, of a woman who had learned that belonging wasn't about acres or deeds, but about the ground you chose to stand on, steady and unafraid. I smiled into the dark and slept.